Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining my webinar this morning. Thanks, everybody, for hopping on board. I appreciate it. Looks like we have about 49 people in the conference right now, so that makes me very happy. And I'm going to be talking today about a team-oriented approach to AAC. So there was a question on handouts. The slides are what we've got. You'll get a copy of the slides afterwards. If you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to post them in the chat. And I'll try really hard to remember to stop a couple times throughout the presentation and address some of those questions. But if not, then there'll definitely be some time at the end to go over them. So feel free to post them when you think of them, and then we can kind of lump them together as we go. Thanks again, everyone, for coming and for participating, and we'll go ahead and get started. And let me know if my sound's not coming through or anything. I'm kind of assuming that it is. We'll do a screen share later on too, and I'll check and make sure that's working like it should. All right, so this is the basic agenda. What I'm going to be talking about today. I'll start with a little introduction to who I am and what CoughDrop is, because I'm sure some of you have never heard of CoughDrop. I'll talk a little bit about AAC and the shortcomings that I discovered in my experience. And then I'm going to talk about this idea of team enabling AAC, or a team-oriented approach to AAC, and what that means. I'll do a little bit of a demo so you can get an idea of the CoughDrop app and how it tries to address some of these shortcomings, and then we'll make sure and have time at the end for questions. So my name is Brian Whitmer. I live in Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City. Father of 4. I have a master's degree in computer science, and my research in grad school is on usability. So I researched how to make it intuitive or easy for people to interact with computers. I spent about 6 years working in the education space on educational technology software. I started a company called Instructure, and we built Canvas, which is a learning management system that schools use to track grades and turn homework, things like that. It's going really well. I don't need to be involved day to day there. And as I started looking at what I wanted to do next, my oldest daughter, who is 8 years old now, she has Rett syndrome. She doesn't really speak, has very poor use of her hands, doesn't walk, and when we originally found out about her diagnosis, the message from a lot of her caregivers or from support staff was just make her comfortable, just make her happy. And as we started to look into things, we ended up going to a Rett syndrome conference. It was a very different message, right? It was about presuming competence and enabling these girls, and the opportunities were there, and they were there, and they could function and interact. And we came home from that feeling very empowered. And started working with her, and she just took off, and it's been amazing to see her progress since then. She's a little a miracle, and she's really done it all on her own. And as we started scrambling to look for a communication solution for her, I started to get frustrated because of my usability background in the apps and software that were available. I felt like that there were shortcomings, and there were things that could be addressed that could make a huge difference in the AAC space. But I didn't want to just take my ideas and run with them. I wanted to make sure that I had an idea of what was working not just for me but for everyone. So I started a company called CoughDrop. The name refers to the idea that when you're hoarse or when people have a hard time hearing you and you throw a cough drop in your mouth, nobody looks at you weird. But if you grab one of these communication apps, you pull out a tablet and you start using the speech synthesis on it, the whole room kind of stops and looks over and says, what's going on? So the goal of CoughDrop is to try to make those communication apps or solutions more like a cough drop, something that is mainstream or not weird. So part of that is really good software. Part of that is outreach. We tweet, so the Twitter handle is CoughDrop AAC. You can always go to the website, mycoughDrop.com, and learn more there as well. Before I go any farther, I want to ask a question. This is sort of an open poll, so if you want to respond in the chat, I would appreciate it. We're always trying to learn. I don't ever pretend to know all the right answers. I can't come to this and say, oh yeah, I've been a speech path for 15 years, or I know all about assistive technology. What I know is how to build good software, and I'll talk a little more about this. But my goal is to collaborate with people in the field who have been doing it for a lot longer than me. And I think that together we can build a better solution than either of us would be able to on our own. So this quick question for anyone that feels like answering it. what's your biggest frustration around AAC? Doesn't have to be a technology solution. It's fine if it is. Essentially what I'm trying to get at is what's your beef? You know, why do you think AAC interventions don't work more often than they should? Or what do you think is holding us back as an industry? I'd love to hear these thoughts. You know, I'll keep pestering and keep asking this question over and over again. But I'll collect these and maybe we'll talk about them more. So thank you for those who are already posting. I really appreciate it. And I said I'll collect those. Talk to me a little bit about outreach. So I said that I don't pretend to be an expert. Over the last, when I first started, the first year of this, I spent the first 6 months I spent talking to about 30 specialists in the field. So speech pathologists, AT specialists, OTs, parents, talking about this idea of AAC and what we thought the future should look like and what the problems were with the past and what baggage we were bringing and what opportunities there were, and all just kind of trying to gather an idea and also talk about what we can do differently. So these are some of the map markers that we hit. If your state's not on here, it's not because I don't like your state, or because I picked favorites and it wasn't you. It's just that's who we manage. And if you want to talk, I would love to talk afterwards. We continue to do this outreach and continue to bat ideas around. My email is Brian, BRIAN, at mycoughdrop.com. Feel free to shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to set up a time to talk. So as we talked and just try to gather ideas, the goal was to do something that wasn't specific to a state or to a specific user. So we talked to people that are working with adults, we talked to people in a hospital setting, we talked to parents. We tried to get an idea of across the spectrum what was going on. And I'd show my ideas, and I'll show you a little bit of that. But these are some of the feedback that we got, or the response that happened as I started talking to all these people. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of interest, and a lot of really great perspective that I gained from talking to all of these different people across the country. Somebody says I avoid this out. That was not on purpose, Francis, and I would love to talk to you if you're down there. As part of this outreach, I'll show you some of the slides that I was using so you can get an idea of what the discussion sort of looked like. So one of the first things I would do when I would talk to experts and parents and people in the industry was to say, here's a bunch of pain points. These are some things that I heard. These are some things that I've heard, that I've felt. These are things that other people have told me. Which of these do you resonate with you, and which of these do you think, this is not a big deal? And some of these were sort of trick questions I was trying to get a rise out of people, and some of these were very, very, very deliberate. And this list sort of changed and evolved after each discussion, because the goal was to try to tease out the thing that I'm asking you about in the chat. What isn't working? What are the frustrations that we have? And because some of it can be technology. Some of it can be, if it's hard to use, then nobody's going to use it, or if it's hard to program, we're never going to change it. And other pieces of it are just, speech pathologists are busy and they have a huge caseload. Probably, in general, probably way more than any of them should have. But that's life, and you just deal with it. And so, trying to understand across the spectrum what are the struggles and what are the things that are causing AAC to maybe work not as well as it should. After that, we would go through some sort of mock-ups. So I say, this is a pretend AAC app. This isn't what CoughDrop looks like. It's sort of similar, but it's definitely evolved a lot. But the idea was to say, look, that at a very detailed level, say, okay, I touched this button and this is what happened, and I touched this button and this is what happened, and sort of walk through and say, this is what I've experienced. Is this the way you think it should go? What do you think could be different? We talk about crazy ideas. We talk about very interesting ideas, like maybe we could record video sessions, so you could sort of get the touches on the screen and a video recording of what's on the web camera at the same time. We talk about reports and what kind of reporting system we could have that would help give insights to see what was going on or what could be done differently. Talk about, for example, if you printed off a physical copy of this, what would it look like and what would be an important piece to have. This was a very involved discussion. Each time I would have this meeting or discussion, I'd end up talking for an hour and a half, trying to tease out these ideas and trying to understand where we can go and what can be done better. I took a ton of notes. I have about 300 pages of notes from all these discussions, and taken that and tried to incorporate it into what we've built at CoughDrop. But anyway, I want to talk about some of the insights or some of the things that we learned from these discussions and things we discovered together, and how it's driven this sort of team-oriented approach like we've been talking about. So talking about some of the shortcomings that I heard come through in all of those discussions about AAC. First of all, there are usability issues, and that didn't surprise me from my own experience. I definitely saw things that could be done differently, and I'll talk about what some of those are and what some of those I heard. But the one that surprised me, or the one that I didn't know to see coming, was this idea of enabling the team. That was a concern that came through again and again in different ways. If parents aren't involved, or if the teacher isn't engaged, then it really hampers the effectiveness of the AAC intervention. And part of the reason for that I want to talk about is this idea of a device mindset, which is a term that I've come up with and that I'm using to try to explain one of the, I guess, a little bit of the baggage that we have from the history of AAC. So we'll go ahead and dive into each of those. Before we do, though, I'm going to check the questions area, see if we have any questions. No, I think we're okay. Okay. So let's keep going. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to post them, and we'll get them filtered into the question and answer area, and then we can answer them one by one. But there'll also be time at the end if you prefer to wait for that. So let's talk about each of these. So usability issues. One of the big frustrations that I heard was how hard it is to program these devices. And a lot of speech pathologists said, well, I'll just kind of muscle through it because this is my field and this is my expertise and I can make it work. And so we kind of, we're not dead in the water. We can program it, but parents don't feel empowered to get involved and to make those changes because they feel so intimidated by it. Or just the customization can take so much longer than it feels like it should. You click the program a button, and then you take a picture, and then you click here and click here, and there's lots of involved steps in order to get anything done. So that was the common frustration that I heard from everyone. Talking about not enough accommodations. With the sort of transition from physical hardware devices to tablets, a lot of people said it felt like we lost a lot of flexibility and customization options, which maybe isn't the end of the world. The iPad is great because it's cheap. It does crack, but you can replace it without having to spend an arm, 2 arms and 2 legs at least. But some of the options around access haven't caught up to where they were before, things like that. And then a big concern around usability. Maybe some people don't think about this as usability, but if the device breaks, everything is lost. So if, for example, you have everything inside of the app on your tablet, and then the tablet cracks and you can't get the screen anymore, unless you thought to back up right after you made changes, then whatever changes you had are gone. And you're going to spend a lot of time programming on a new device and setting it up all over again. We've made a little bit of progress in that area because you actually can back things up on some of the apps now, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And that's essentially a very poor usability experience if you're relying on a piece of hardware to not break. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. The concerns around the enabling of the team, this was the part that I really tried to dig into and understand. And one of the things that I kept hearing was there's this idea that in AAC interventions there tends to be this one sort of super advocate, this one person who says, we're going to make this work. And we're going to muscle through and it's just going to be awesome because we're going to implement it and everybody else is just, we're just going to do it no matter what. And everybody else kind of says, okay, we'll follow along, we'll kind of follow your lead. But they don't engage, and sometimes that's a parent that says, you know what, we're doing AAC, so teachers get on board. And sometimes it's a therapy room that says, this child needs communication apps, so we're going to do it. And the parents maybe don't understand or don't feel like they're part of it, so they don't engage. You can also have the problem of too many cooks when multiple people try to program things, and that can be a concern as well when everyone isn't aligned. There's a lot of suspicion that I heard around it not being used elsewhere. So parents would say, I'm pretty sure it never gets used at school. And therapists would say, I'm pretty sure it never gets used at home, it just gets put in a closet. And so there's not good visibility around around what's going on so that everyone can feel like they're on the same page. There's a lot of suspicion, but nobody has the data to actually make an informed decision and say, you know what, it's not being used at home. So let's see what we can do about that. People, like I said, don't feel like they're part of the strategy. A lot of parents that I talked to felt disempowered. They felt like this was something either that got forced on them or that they don't really know what's going on and they just kind of follow the lead of others, which may not be bad, but if we can get them more engaged, I think we'll have better successful strategies. People weren't sure how to program the device, and so they just left it for somebody else to do. I'd hear about school districts where it was waiting 3 months for the specialist to get back around to that school so that they could program the device and make a couple changes, which just sounds crazy. People didn't know what to work on right now, so they bring the device home and they're so excited and pumped. And it's like, we've got time to work on it, but they didn't know what to do. So that was a big concern. And then also just a lot of work and disruption of time in order to make changes. Taking time out of a therapy session to program things, or it's taking the whole night. And when do you do it without taking the child's device away? They can do while they're sleeping, but if you're at school, that means you have to keep it at school and then send them home without it. And so just lots of concerns there. So those are some of the team-oriented frustrations that I heard expressed over and over again as part of this discovery strategy. And it sort of leads into this idea of the device mindset that I talked about. So the history of AAC comes from these physical devices, right? It started with being able to type, and just type on a keyboard, and it would print off little pieces of paper so you could sort of see what a person was saying, and then speech synthesis got involved, and then you started to add these icon-based buttons for people maybe that couldn't spell or couldn't read, the history is very much around these pieces of hardware that were a dedicated single solution. And even as we've moved to touch screens and to touch interfaces and screen interfaces, that sort of mentality has continued. And I want to talk about what that prevents us from doing when we have this device mindset. Because there are a number of things that don't actually have to be stuck on the device, but we think about them as stuck on the device because of our history and because of where we've come from. So, for example, the idea of learning the language or the vocabulary that an individual is using, we think about that on the device. It doesn't actually have to be on the device, but if we say, I want to know what buttons this child is using, we take the device and look at it because that's the history that we have, and that's where things come from, and that's what you have to do right now. So you take it away and you learn where the buttons are, or you model with them, but you're modeling on their specific device. Now, in the software world, there's actually nothing that requires, that says that's a necessary component. You could just as easily, in theory, learn their vocabulary on a different device, on your computer or on your laptop. And there's nothing that says this has to stay on one device in order for it to work from a technology perspective. Making changes is another example. We take the device away to reprogram it, but there's not anything inherent to these languages that requires it to be on the device. We could, in theory, just as easily make changes on our computer at home or in the computer in the therapy room after the child has left for the day, and then they'll sync up and be updated somewhere else. Tracking usage is another one. When we want to see what happens, or we turn on logging on the device, and then we stop it and we look at the device when we have time and see what reports have been generated or what the data looks like, or we download it on a USB stick and stick it somewhere else. But the idea, again, is that it's stuck on a specific device. Adding outside resources is another example. When we want to pull in learning materials from school, we say, okay, well, let me take the device and program it and get the content that I have here onto this device. And there isn't, like I said, there isn't anything from a technology perspective that requires all of these actions to happen on that specific device. It's our history, and it's what the current crop of AAC apps allow us to do that's keeping us there. But in theory, we could actually move beyond that, and there would be some very interesting opportunities to enable the team if we did that. That's what I'm trying to talk about as we've started this CoughDrop initiative, and that's part of the goal here is to help people see that we can better enable the team if we can get past this device mindset. I'm going to stop again and see if we have any questions. Okay, I don't see any. I think Dallas, I think you're hopefully working through things with Kristen, but not anything else. So I'm going to continue. So in order to make AAC more successful, there's a number of things we can do. One is better usability. I'm not going to spend too much time in this webinar just because of our limited time, but we have spent a lot of time on CoughDrop trying to make it more usable and more functional and more flexible. And I'm happy to go over that with anybody that's interested. So definitely let me know. Like I said, you can email me, brian@mycoughdrop.com, or you can tweet at us, CoughDrop AAC, however you want to get a hold. There's a contact form on the website as well if you want to talk more about usability. And I'm sure we'll do another webinar on that another time. Another piece of it that we've tried to approach is this idea of a language-centric strategy instead of a device-centric strategy. And that's just what I was talking about with the device mindset, trying to help people see that we can actually separate the language or vocabulary set from the piece of hardware. And when we do, it opens up some very interesting opportunities. A lot of that around empowering the team. As I start looking at what can we do, what are the shortcomings of our current AAC intervention team, and the things that kept coming to mind, they're not informed enough, they're not aligned enough, or they're not engaged enough. If we had a whole team, that includes therapists, that includes the teacher, that includes parents, that includes grandma that watches them on the weekends. If we had a whole team that was informed, aligned, and engaged, then I think everyone agrees that AAC interventions would be significantly more successful. So that's a big part of the goal, and that's what I want to kind of walk through as I go through some demos. So now I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm going to ask just real quick in chat. Can somebody say yes if they see my screen okay? We got a web browser up with the CoughDrop logo in it. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to talk about some of these components of CoughDrop. So like I said, CoughDrop is an AAC app. Right now I'm showing you in a web browser. It's actually very flexible. It'll run on Android, it'll run on iOS, it'll run on a Chromebook, a Windows computer, this is a Mac. Whatever device you've got, it can run on it. It can be installed as an app on mobile devices, so it'll work just like any of the other apps you'd expect. But it's not in app stores right now because it's in beta. So if you want to use it, you just go to mycoughdrop.com and sign up, and there's instructions for how to install it as an app and start using it. But you can also pull it up in the web browser like you can see here. So I'm going to show some tabs, some different pieces of functionality. But CoughDrop does all the stuff you'd expect for an AAC app. You can use it to generate speech and build your sentences. I can use it to speak for me. You know, I can organize things into folders, however I want. There's some sample vocabulary sets that are available. You can always set up your own as well. Some of them have been submitted by some of our users. Some of them very core-based, some of them very category-based. So lots of flexibility there. But you can run this vocabulary set or this language on any device. So if I have a communicator that's using their iPad for communication, I can log in, and I don't have to use their login. I can actually be connected as a supervisor. CoughDrop has this notion of supervisors. So every user has their own login, and then I can connect multiple people to my account as supervisors. And then they have access to my boards, and they can actually do some collaboration things as well that I'll talk about in a minute. But they can see my board set on their own device, and so they can learn it. So I can have parents learning what the vocabulary looks like without having to take the device away. That's actually kind of an innovative and a very powerful thing that we haven't had before. I, as a parent, my daughter, when we first got her communication device, it was a Toby, because she needs eye gaze, and so we've been using that. Right now, you know, if I want to make changes, then I can make the changes on it. And if I want to show them else the changes, I have to say, okay, be quiet for a minute while I take away your device and go show this to somebody else. But if instead I could separate the language from the device, then I can start to look at this vocabulary set or this language on my own devices. And I can study it before I come home from work. I don't even have to be in the same room to get to know where things are. I can actually make changes on those devices as well. So I could reprogram or rearrange the buttons and things, and then the next time that tablet comes online, it can sync up the changes. So the devices don't have to be online all the time. They work perfectly fine offline. It's just the next time they connect to the internet, that's when they sync up any changes that have been made. So lots of control and flexibility there. CoughDrop, every user has their own login, and you can see, there's lots of options. So I can see where some sessions that have been going on recently, if I have logging turned on and things like that. Every user has their own profile, and I get these reports, so I can start to see what is the communication looking like over time. And these reports are available to the communicator and also the support team around that communicator. So parents have this, therapists have this, everyone that's connected to that user's account has access to these reports. By the way, editing the boards, that's something that you optionally give to supervisors. So if you're worried about everyone going crazy and programming on top of each other, you can make just one supervisor the editor and prevent some of that confusion. But the reports, you can see sort of what's been going on over time. There's very lots of communication. I'm not the most consistent communicator. You can see based on location what's the communication looking like. So I was at a conference in Florida, so I could filter by those sessions there and see what that communication looked like as opposed to the communication that happened at home. But you can imagine as not Florida versus Utah, but home versus school, we can compare what are the communication looking like across different locations. You also get a heat map, so you can see where are they hitting on the screen, so you can see if there's any dead zones. So you know where to put buttons or maybe where not to put buttons if access is an issue for that individual. And then you can drill into the specific logs. So you can see on a session-by-session basis what the communication looking like. And again, this is something that's available not just to the person who has the device in their hand, but to the whole team. If logging has been turned on for that individual, then everyone can have access to it, and they can get a consistent idea of what's going on, what's working and what isn't. There's a messaging piece to CoughDrop as well. So as a supervisor, I'm going to come over here. This is a different login. I'm my therapist now, and I can see all the messages or logs for someone that I'm a supervisor for. And I can actually make notes as well. So I can create a note and say, things are going well, let's work on, and I can check to notify others of this message, and then this message will get sent out to everyone that's connected to this communicator. So all of the supervisors on this account will now get an email and they'll see notifications around this message. So that's how we can start to align or coordinate our strategy across the whole team. Everyone can be on board. So we have reports so we can be informed about what's going on. We have a messaging piece so we can be aligned and hopefully more engaged as a result of both of these to help everyone feel like they're part of the solution and to see where things are falling short and what we can do about it. Another interesting idea that comes up when you have this idea of being able to modify and make changes on different devices and sync everything back up is the idea of being able to create once and push to many people. So if I'm a teacher and I have multiple communicators in my classroom, I could create a school page once inside of CoughDrop, and I can connect it to the account of multiple communicators. And when I do that, then all of them will have access to it, and then I can make changes to it, and it'll push it out to everyone at the same time. So if we're changing our curriculum or we're changing the topics that we're addressing, I can start to add more buttons, or I can, if we feel like it's acceptable, I can replace buttons and sort of move through the curriculum. And I don't have to program each individual device in order to do that. So CoughDrop, I'm going to go back to my slides. CoughDrop is about enabling and empowering the whole team. We spent a lot of time on usability trying to make something that works for everybody and can empower the team so that everyone feels like they're informed, aligned, and engaged in the solution, because we feel like that's what will make the most difference in successful AAC strategies. So there's a lot of potential to help communication work better and to help it be a more successful thing for everyone. So that's one of the big goals of CoughDrop, and that's what I wanted to get across today. this device mindset that we've come sort of historically from, where everything has to happen on the device. There's a lot of opportunity for us to get past that. And as we do, we can better enable and empower the whole communication team to be part of the solution. And when everyone is involved in the solution, I feel like AAC interventions can't help but work better. So that's the goal, is to build something that can be a nice AAC app that'll work for everybody. That's what we've done with CoughDrop. But also providing the tools and resources to help the entire team be involved in the solution. So that's the story, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and open up for questions now if anybody has any. I see one question. Someone asked about switches and eye gaze if they can be used with the software. The answer is yes. Depends on your device. So iPad has some great built-in switch access that works with CoughDrop. There is a scanning tool that's built into CoughDrop that can use keyboard shortcuts and things, so there's flexibility there. If you feel like it's not working, we're happy to work with you to get it functioning. It'll work well with eye gaze as well. If you have a device that's unlocked, then you should be able to run CoughDrop on it just fine. So hopefully that answers that question. Someone just asked if I'll be presenting at ASHA. I don't know yet. I will be at ASHA schools next month, so if anyone's there and wants to come by the booth, we'll have a booth and we'll have some awesome swag. It would be worth your while to come visit us. But ASHA, the general ASHA conference, I'm not sure if we'll be there yet. Again, if you have questions that you don't feel comfortable asking in front of everybody, or if you want to ask follow up later, my email is brian@mycoughdrop.com, and I'm happy to answer any emails there. There's a contact form on the website, and you can tweet at us as well. Oh, someone asked about cough. I didn't answer that before. So CoughDrop is free for the team. The cost is per communicator. So communicators would pay. There's two options. You can pay monthly, or you can do a long-term purchase. You can pay about the pricing is actually kind of flexible depending on what your situation is. But you can pay around $6 to $7 a month, or $150 for a long-term purchase. So whatever works best for you and your situation. Because if I'm a parent and I want to try out a new app, I don't want to fork out $150 up front and hope that it just magically works. So I may want to purchase it for just a little while and get to know, and then see from there. By the way, there's a 2-month free trial as part of it as well. When you sign up, you get 2 months for free, so you can get your feet wet and understand what's going on, and then go from there. But the idea is to have it be flexible enough that people can get used to it. If you're a therapist and you sign up, there's a way that it's just in the interface. There's a way to become a therapist, and it'll be free for you forever. And you can connect communicators accounts that way. All right, some additional questions. Are the CoughDrop symbols unique to CoughDrop? So no, the symbols that you've seen in the demos are from a couple open license symbol sets. There's one called AAC. There's one called Mulberry. They're open license, which makes it nice. You can use whatever symbol sets you want inside of the system, and we're working on integrating with some of the typical players. These are nice because they're free, and you're not going to get in trouble if you post them on the internet, so it makes it a lot more flexible that way. But you can use whatever you want. You can record your own sounds. The buttons, it encourages Fitzgerald key for the colors, but you can actually do whatever you want. If you have a question on what is long-term, I think you're talking about pricing because I said $150 for long-term. That would be for 5 years. So hopefully that answers that. Question on does it accept photographs and videos? Yes, it'll do both of those. So you can take your own pictures and use those. You can record your own sounds, like I said. And for videos, you can't use video buttons. Like you can't have an animated button symbol, but you can have buttons play when you hit videos play when you hit a button. So if you hit a button, it'll pop up the video and it can play that. So that's the idea. Can buttons hold phrases? Yes. So lots of flexibility in how you set it up. We have people that are using full sentences. We have people just have a couple buttons that they're using. CoughDrop will do the things that you would expect, hopefully in the way you expect them. we try to cover the use cases that typical AAC apps have, and then also go above and beyond that. I see a question around security issues as well, other security issues. We spend a lot of time working on the security side to make sure that everything is protected and secured. Everything is private by default. All the logging and everything is off by default. All the user information is encrypted and protected on our servers. Everything is over HTTPS, but encrypted in the stream as it goes across. We've tried very hard to make sure that everything is buttoned up, but we're happy to answer specific questions or dig in. There is a keyboard. The question about word prediction. You can build your own keyboard, or you can use the built-in keyboard, and it has a prediction piece as part of that as well. But it's programmed per board right now, and we can talk. I'm happy to talk if there are people that are interested in that. Most of the users that I've worked with so far haven't been interested in that level of sophistication. But I'm happy to work with whoever to make sure it works for your needs. Again, that's been the goal this whole time. I don't pretend to know all the right answers, and I don't pretend to know how to build the best AAC system by myself. That's why we work with all of you. I recognize some of the names actually on this conference from people that have met with us before. We work with all of you to be able to understand what the needs are and where we should be going, and that's the plan continuing to go forward. Is to build something with specialists in the space so that we have good usability, we have a good idea of what can be innovative and interesting, and we know sort of where to go from here. So I think that probably about wraps it up. If you have additional questions, feel free to email me, Brian, at mycoughdrop.com, or fill out the contact form on the website. Would love to see all of you sign up on the website, mycoughDrop.com. It's a free sign up. You can kick the tires. You don't have to sign up to start playing with it either. If you just go to the website and scroll to the bottom, you can see some of the example boards, and you can just start playing with them right there. So whatever floats your boat. But I'd love feedback from anyone that wants to share it. And I'll give just another minute or two in case somebody has any last questions. But thank you, everyone, for coming to the webinar and for participating. Okay, I don't see anything else, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Hopefully this was useful and got some creative juices flowing. The goal wasn't just to say, look, here's CoughDrop, it's the coolest thing in the world, although I kind of think it is pretty cool, but also to say, how can we get past this device mindset, and how can we really start to change the mentality in a way that can enable the team and help these AAC interventions be more successful. So thank you again, everyone. Appreciate your time, and I'd love to hear more from you.
Thank you for participating in today's conference call. You may now disconnect.